Here's my question: do we just start the bit over?
Here, now, give us a few minutes to lock down. Just largely very dangerous.
Yeah. Groundhog Day hit.
Fine, just do it. I think I can tell the story a little bit better this time. Okay. Yeah. Don't be afraid to shoot a message in Slack if it's not working, and I should have done that too.
Who is this? What's your operating number?
Everything's under control. Situation normal. Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Are all of our teams okay? Okay. Oh, I didn't know that button was there. That's cool.
We have a reactor
really
leak
could have
here.
solved a lot of problems
Now, give us a few
early
minutes
days.
to lock it down. Very dangerous.
Really tremendously solved. Okay, yeah. They're working. I'll never doubt you. Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah. Let's take it
What's
again.
your operating number?
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you can do is just delete the other video, right? You can just take it off the channel. Yeah. We go again. Nothing happened. So here I was, after having seen Mike's post in the Discord about his beautiful Marvel Comics Star Wars Legends puzzle, that I immediately said, you know what? Technically, like, those old Marvel comics count as legends. Therefore, I have to have it. It's got to go in a collection. It's going to be one of these puzzles that I glue together and frame. And so after going to Walmart's website and Amazon and Target, and hey, I tried using the Youtini affiliate link. Don't get me wrong. Finally, I found that it was not in stock at any of the Targets near me, but I tried anyway. I tried looking, went to a few different Targets. Walmart said it was in stock. Went to 4 different Walmarts looking for this puzzle. Even got lost in one of them a couple days after my concussion, which was a whole lot of fun. Calling my wife saying, not only did I not find the puzzle, but I don't know where I am. Anyway, I've seen a doctor. I'm getting better. It's all fine. And especially fine is the fact that now, after having gone to multiple websites, multiple stores in multiple different towns, paying double the price, 10 hours, 4 nights later, we have the original Marvel Comics puzzle. I couldn't be prouder, Freddie.
That's so awesome.
These have gotten a little bit difficult to find, in case you couldn't tell by my rant. Freddie, you were saying that you're a puzzle guy, but not necessarily a Star Wars puzzle guy. You got a favorite puzzle you've ever done, Freddie?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. There's a puzzle that I put together not too long ago where every piece was the same color, so it was all white.
Oh man,
and that was a nightmare. And then there was another one I put together in Palm Springs of all the postcards from Palm Springs in that time. And you can imagine how difficult that was. There was like 15 different.
That's cool.
Different postcards. So
yeah, I imagine it looked like this. It just had fewer wonky looking Leias, right? Man, Leia looks jank all over this thing, unfortunately. Han looks pretty good. Chewie's looking awesome. Vader is looking fly for sure. Yeah. But Leia, oh, bless her heart. How about you, Nathan? You a puzzle guy?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to do pre-pandemic is to go to like vintage stores and antique stores and stuff and hunt for vintage Star Wars stuff. And so one time, I was looking around and I actually found this vintage puzzle that was, I think, from 1983.
You think? Yeah, just to be precise.
Yeah, something like that. So that was a pretty cool find. I've done a couple other Star Wars puzzles, but that was definitely the best one.
Awesome, man. I have really gotten into it. My wife and I have done a bunch. Finally, after doing 7 or 8 Star Wars puzzles in a row, my wife said, I'm not doing another Star Wars puzzle with you until we do a Harry Potter puzzle. I was like, fine, pick one out. We'll do it. And then I've got another one picked out. I'm excited to do. It's like the movie posters from different languages. And it's got like the Revenge of the Jedi poster, which is one of my favorites. I'm excited to do that. But right now we're stuck hardcore on the Hogwarts Express because everything is black and gray and red. and it has taken a while. It's been a ton of fun. In fact, over Christmas, Freddie, did I tell you this story? We went with my wife's family. We got together over Christmas break. We did like a full 2-week quarantine ahead of time. We got tested a few days after arrival to allow for the incubation period. I mean, it was this whole ordeal. We stayed out of town so that nobody would be dropping by the house trying to, come in, like chat with us. We got out like 45 minutes out into the wilderness, rented this special campsite. And as soon as I arrived, I've got the Star Wars radar. I found a whole bunch of unopened boxes of these Star Wars puzzles, and totally jacked one, put it together, and then brought it home. And in fact, it's a panoramic puzzle. I can hear that puzzle ASMR over here. You can actually string it together. Where I love this one with Palpatine's face. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely called dibs on doing that one first. So you can actually put the puzzles together. And I'm not sure if I've got them right, but they form this panorama. Anyway, a ton of fun. My fingers are building up like those puzzle calluses. So we can cross that one off our 2020 bingo card. Or 2021 at this point, but the pandemic bingo card. And it's been awesome. I don't know if I will ever do another puzzle once this pandemic is over, because I'm certainly getting it out of my system. But you know what else I want to get out of my system? This episode of Legends Look Back. We're talking about the Jedi Academy trilogy. It's our second week of the Roundtable on this one. Could not be more excited to get into the topics for tonight. We've got blobstacle courses. I mean, if that doesn't hook you, I don't know what does. Wookiee brutality. We've got Luke Skywalker's obsession with redemption. I mean, it's going to be a fun episode. So, without further ado, let's start the show. I don't know if the first or the second was better. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legends Look Back, a show brought to you by Youtini.com. A Star Wars books podcast you can listen to on your click wheel iPod after you download it on dial-up internet, and you know what I'm talking about. Where we talk about all things Star Wars Legends, celebrating our rich EU history, as well as diving into lesser-known Star Wars classics. I'm your host, Jared Mays, and today I'm joined by the classiest Californian co-host, Freddie C. What's up, Freddie?
Boom, right there. Name.
Yeah, we got nameplates this week. If you're listening on audio, head on over to YouTube. Check that out.
Yeah, it's going well, man. I my mom's birthday just happened, and she loves antiquing, and I definitely don't mind going out with her because I find a lot of Star Wars goods. And I found you a really nice Princess Leia from the Dark
Show it
Empire
off, man.
comics. So
Throw that thing up on screen. Freddie got me the greatest gift that money can buy: Dark Empire Leia. If you can get it to not reflect too badly in the ring light. That's all this episode is tonight. It's just getting things not to reflect too badly.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome,
So,
man.
yeah, it's got little expand, like a foldable playset looking thing that looks like it's part of the comics. It's hard to see from here.
No way.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure if you're gonna open it, but if you do, there's
Haven't decided yet. I've got some that are in box, some that are not. Oh man. That's the greatest gift. I'm not going to tell my wife, but like, hey, greatest gift I've ever received. I mean, I have yet to receive it. Hopefully it makes its way over here. Could not be more excited. I'm excited to learn that these exist. Skooma Joe in the Discord a few months ago told me that there are Dark Empire action figures I did not know were a thing. And now they're definitely on my wish list across all the different platforms. If you're looking to get your favorite host a gift. No, we won't do that. We are, however, this week joined by another wonderful host. It is his second time, 2 weeks in a row on Legends Look Back. Joining us once again this week from YouTube and TikTok, Nathan Emery. Or his Force Ghost, at least. All right. We'll edit that out in the audio. Nobody will ever know.
Nobody will know.
We'll give it a second. Welcome to those of us who are joining us in the live chat. All right, here we go. From TikTok, Nathan Emery.
What's up? Glad to be here. The video had been working until just now, so hopefully we can get it back. But
we'll keep it up and
not
down.
have a repeat of last week, but
in and out a little bit here
to be here nonetheless.
Also, this week we are joined by, well, you could call him the wannabe member of Duck Dynasty. I like to call him the wannabe Oppo Rancisis. Filling in for Meg this week from Texas, Wes Jenkins. How are you, Wes?
I'm great, everyone. We'll just go ahead and strike the previous 10 minutes from the record. We started at 8:30, but doing good so far. Everything is fine.
Thanks for filling in. The good news for you is at least you have a floor. Like your entire house hasn't been rearranged due to factors beyond your control. So F's in the chat for
100%.
Meg. Meg, we hope to have you back. However, this week we'll settle for Wes if we have to. This week we are going to be talking about the Jedi Academy Roundtable, our second week of coverage on that. Before we do, however, you know us over here at Legends Lookback. We've got that collector's itch. I showed off my puzzle. Freddie showed you my Dark Empire Leia. It's going to be headed across the continent one of these days. We also like to talk about some of our other recent acquisitions. I know it's only been a week since we last talked about this, guys, but you got any new Star Wars merch, any new Star Wars memorabilia you want to show off? Freddie, I know you went antiquing. You got something for me. Did you get anything for yourself?
Yeah, I actually got myself the 10-inch Star Wars or Stormtrooper Funko Pop.
Did you?
Yeah, it's a sad story. I had that originally in my, thanks to all the Youtini people and in Discord, everyone seems to know when these rare drops are coming down, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I had it in my Target, my shopping cart. I checked out. Maybe like 3 days later, hey, we flagged this as a unauthorized transaction. I was like, unauthorized? That's me.
Oh, no.
That is my Stormtrooper. How could you not put the pieces together?
Any Star Wars transactions, just to prove them, banks.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah, I also had some suspicious activity going on my card the other day. It was all me. I was the suspicious activity. I ended up, I had my phone. I dropped my phone a few weeks ago. It broke. I've been without a phone. Was waiting for the paycheck to roll through in order to buy a new one because phones, they ain't cheap, especially if you want anything halfway decent. And I may be a redneck, but I want a phone that's at least halfway decent, right? And my last one was quite old. Finally went to buy my new one, and the bank ended up processing it 3 times because at first they wouldn't let me do it. And then I checked my email. They're like, is this you? I was like, yeah, it's me. They're like, awesome. You get all the phones. Here's a phone. There's a phone. That way, if you drop one, hey, you got a spare. Anyway, it's been stressful. How about you, Nathan? You got any new Star Wars merch you want to show off?
I got the High Republic #3 and High Republic Adventures #2, but I actually don't have them with me in the room. But
no, that's exciting.
Great comics.
Yeah. Man, loved the High Republic. High Republic #3, just the Marvel one. I won't spoil it here. Love the villainous reveals in that. In fact, I've got a panel from that as the background on my new phone. So I'm sure
how many covers of it do you have?
I haven't bought. I've only got one copy of #3. I got that Martian Row exclusive cover that looked super sick. Besides that, I was like, I only intended to collect exclusive covers on issue 1, and I've had trouble stopping, which is that collector's urge. However, for me, what I want to show off this week, I've got 4 new Funkos in the mail. The concept series, the Ralph McQuarrie. I got the Vader with the blue lightsaber, which is cool. The saber's like a little bit bent. Unfortunately, but like not too bad. You probably can't even see over YouTube. I got the R2D2 with like those chopper grabber arms. You know what I'm talking about?
That's pretty cool.
Definitely the inspiration for Chopper there. Kind of like got the chrome polished metal spray paint thing going on. We got the used car salesman C-3PO. And then my favorite of the bunch, I like to call him Quarantine Yoda, because his hair is even longer than Nathan's over there. Yoda looking like he's had a rough quarantine. And of course, if you're in the collections channel on Discord and you already heard me made that joke today, I am sorry, but I am very much a dad in every way.
Looks like a sick Legolas.
Sick Legolas. I love this.
He also
Yoda
just looks so sad.
Like, I want to put a comparison of Baby Yoda next to this Yoda Funko Pop. Just like March 2020, March 2021. Am I right? My wife said, wait, that huge box has Funko Pops? I was like, yeah, but I got them at retail price this time. I didn't pay extra.
You're like, it's mostly packaging. Don't worry. Just
she's like, I guess that's a good thing. My kids were excited to open them with me, but I was like, easy on those neck springs. All right. Those are daddy's toys. This has been a ton of fun to share those with everybody. I've been excited to show those off. We also like to talk about Legends news at the top of the show. We've talked in recent weeks about how on March 9th, we would have the Dark Empire Legends Epic Collection. Well, March 9th is coming. I mean, it's right around the corner. I've even seen some folks in the Discord showing the fact that this is already shipped for them. The Legends Epic Collection, the New Republic Volume 5, collecting all of the issues of Dark Empire plus a few random Tales issues, has now shipped. So I'm excited for us to cover. We're going to talk about Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End here in just a few episodes here on the show. Freddie, you excited to dive deeply into that world a little bit more? You know, some of my very favorite Star Wars.
I am. I just looked at my shipping, and man, it just keeps moving out. It is not coming anytime soon.
That's what's been happening to my Star Wars Insider, the fiction collection. So volume 1 is due on March 23rd. Mine has been pushed out a little bit, unfortunately. And there's a little bit more Legends news this week, and that is we want to wish a happy retirement to Randy Stradley, the legend himself. He was the editor-in-chief at Dark Horse Comics for 35 years. At least I think I've got that number right. I could be wrong. John Jackson Miller tweeted about it, and I heard it on another podcast. And I was like, we got to make sure we talk about that a little bit on the show tonight. So happy retirement to Randy Stradley. If you're a fan of any of the Star Wars Legends stuff that happened over there at Dark Horse, you owe a grade of gratitude. A grade of gratitude? All right, show's over. Thanks for watching the show tonight. We're cutting it here. A debt of gratitude to Randy Stradley. He's a legend, isn't he, Freddie?
Yeah, he is. He is. He's been, 35 years, plus or minus even 5 years is a long time. So,
absolutely.
Congrats to him for seeing it all the way through. And, the amount of things that happened in those 30 some years that he's been around, I'm sure are I hope I see a memoir of that soon.
Oh man, absolutely. I got to get that signed and framed, and got to get the variant covers of it and all of it. And then finally, in the world of Legends news, hey, we're always shamelessly plugging other Youtini projects, but Freddie and I are both secretly fans of some other things that are not just Youtini. Freddie, one of our favorite non-Youtini loves is the longest running Star Wars literature podcast on the internet, Jedi Journals. The most recent episode of Jedi Journals, the March 2021 episode I just listened to today on my new phone, first podcast I listened to on it. They covered a Legends masterpiece, which is the Dark Horse Comics, kind of in celebration of Randy Stradley. Inadvertently, they said it was on accident. They covered the Quinlan Vos and Ayla Secura arc about, it's called Rite of Passage. So it's Star Wars issues 42 through 45. Freddie, have you read like that the classic Dark Horse Ayla Secura Quinlan Vos stuff?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I definitely partook in that. I would say it was Quinlan Vos and Ayla Secura. First of all, were when that whole situation happened, right? In what is that, Dark Disciple?
Yeah. Most recently, it's Quinlan and Ventress.
Ventress, that's right. And then Ayla Secura, when she comes in, and you kind of get a little bit more of Quinlan Vos and who he is, and man, I have to admit, I overlooked him at first. I overlooked Quinlan Vos, and it wasn't because I wasn't interested in his character, but he just wasn't, the name that I knew.
Yeah.
But
sure.
The more I started to read up on him, I really dug him as a character, and I like that we can claim that, right, in our in Legends.
That's right. There's so much more. Hey, if you like Dark Disciple, wait till you touch Legends. I mean, there's like 100 issues of Quinlan Vos in Legends, and it is absolutely some of the finest Star Wars stories ever written. Absolutely love those from John Ostrander and I think Jan Duursema, if I'm not wrong. We'll have to double check my facts on that, but we'll cover those on the show one of these days. So it was a great episode, guys, over there at Jedi Journals. Loved that stuff, talking about some classic Legends content. As soon as they said we're talking about Legends, I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm so glad I turned on this episode, because I don't listen to everyone anymore. I've been listening to this thing for like 10 years. I can't catch them all, but was so excited that I did this time. But enough about other people's Legends projects. Let's talk about our own. Tonight, we are finishing our coverage of the Jedi Academy trilogy, talking about Jedi Search, Dark Apprentice, and Champions of the Force. We're not getting into all the trivia that we did last week, as much as to say these came out in 1994, And they are still around today in 2021, and you won't regret it if you read them. And if you do regret it, please don't tell me or leave an angry comment on this YouTube video. Last week we talked about the characters. We got the mini members, about a dozen of them, depending on how we're doing our math. Whether or not we're counting the Corran Horn retcon, right? On whether or not he was at the Academy. There's about a dozen members. There's like 7 or 8 in that are actually a part of the trilogy that get like a speaking role or any kind of significance. Just a tremendous amount of world building that Kevin J. Anderson is putting together. Last week we talked about Luke, and we talked about Han and Leia and Kip Duron and his genocidal mania. This week, however, we're talking about some of the bigger overarching themes throughout the trilogy. First and foremost, in reading Jedi Search, which we could talk about this, which one we think is the strongest of the trilogy. I think probably for me it was Jedi Search. It was so much fun to just dive into this in the first place. A lot of laying the groundwork in the first volume there, and so much of that first book takes place on Kessel. And, as I was like 100 pages in, I was thinking, Kessel was absolutely a phenomenal choice to set this Star Wars book on. Remember, we're still the early days of Legends here. Some of these planets that are given one line in the original trilogy are never seen on screen. And so what better place to explore some of these stories than the expanded universe? Am I right, Nathan? Do you think that Kessel was a good choice for setting the first volume in this new Jedi Academy trilogy? I say new. It was new in 1994, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, there's so much that's not explored in Kessel and stuff in the original trilogy. And so, he really does a lot of world building with the mines and like with how Spice is mined and the creatures and just like, everything on it. And, side note, it's really cool to see how much of what's in here and how Kessel's depicted ends up, in Solo.
It really is almost 1-to-1, not entirely. There's no spiders, I don't think, in Solo. But definitely, who was it? One of the writers on that said they were big fans of some of the like 90s EU. It was, let's see, you had like the father-son duo on Solo. I'm flying off the cuff here, Freddie. Help me out. The writer on Solo, Lawrence Kasdan and his son John Kasdan. There we go.
Yeah.
John Kasdan was big into like we got to get him on the podcast one of these days. Big into like the 90s EU stuff. So we got the Maw, especially the Kessel Run itself is depicted in the film and is depicted in a certain extent in this book as well. Freddie, how about you? Are you a fan of Kessel? If you had a vacation somewhere, it probably wouldn't be Kessel, but
yeah.
What was your opinion on Kessel in this book?
So first of all, Nathan brought it up. Kessel has been mentioned by name only in a lot of different EU comics and books, right? It was always, on Kessel this, or the spice mines of Kessel, slaves on Kessel, et cetera, but never have we actually gone to the planet's surface to figure out what is Kessel, what is this place, why is everyone talking about it, and why does it suck here? Right? Why? and you get a lot of sense. And I'll never forget reading Jedi Search when you're hanging out with Han Solo, and he's talking about, or it's his thought process of him going down into the mine shaft, and how that pinhole of light just gets smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where you can barely see it.
Yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah, and I'm just like, this is terrifying. I hate Kessel.
One of my favorite things about the EU, especially the early days of the EU, is when you've got a one line, the original trilogy, and then you can have an entire trilogy, right? Or an entire book that's just dedicated to fleshing out what that one line was all about. So our first episode ever, Freddie, was on Death Troopers, and that's basically predicated on the fact that Han says, I've been from one side of this galaxy to the other, and I've seen a lot of strange stuff. Yeah. And that's basically the premise of the book, is we're going to see some of that strange stuff, right? And so in this book, it's like, you've got, is it 3PO? It's like, they'll send you to the spice mines of Kessel for sure for that one. Don't quote me on that, please. Don't make a gif of that, whatever you do. I especially love that this book is like, all right, well, let's just get Han and Chewie stuck in the spice mines of Kessel. Let's have them imprisoned. and we're gonna find all the weirdness that's going on under there. I loved Morith Duel, the like prison warden,
Oh,
kind of like a kind of reptilian. Is he reptilian or amphibian, Freddie? Do you
I
remember?
believe he's a
You
frog.
Okay, I pictured him as like a Trandoshan mixed with a Hutt.
I can't. What was his species name again? I can't remember his species name off the cuff.
If it's not in the show notes, that I couldn't tell you. Freddie.
Okay.
They did us a lot of good world building with him. Worth Duel. He didn't make the characters episode. We had to make sure we gave him a shout out here. Did love the way that Kessel is characterized in this book, especially because you get so much world building in terms of learning that it's in fact the spice is kind of a byproduct of these glitter stem spiders that live down in the spice mines, and if they're ever exposed to light, the product is ruined. And then of course, like Han and Kip and Chewie, they bust out of there and ruin the whole supply of it. And they're like Lando eventually comes back and he's like, I'm gonna try to get these drugs and sell them. And it's just this downward spiral into the darkness, and it's kind of scary. Reading this, I would suggest at least having a dim lamp on or something, because otherwise, you can kind of feel claustrophobic, can't it, Nathan? Reading about being in the spice mines and it's absolute pitch black, and you hear the noises of the spiders and they're not sure what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, like Freddie was saying, there's when they're going down into the mine and Han's like tripping over other people, you really feel like, and he's like, he closes his eyes and he's not sure. He's like, I can't tell if my eyes are closed or open. It's some really good description of like, this is just pitch black and you're going to be down here for, who knows how many hours every day.
They lose track of time. Terrifying. They don't know what day it is. It feels like the pandemic all over again. They're just stuck down in these
might not have toilet paper.
Who knows? Yeah.
I
don't think that the glitter stem spice would be good for that. Anyway, won't go down that rabbit hole. One of the big criticisms of the Jedi Academy trilogy, though, I do think Kessel is one of its stronger points. One of its big criticisms is that it doesn't build on the events and characters established in the Thrawn trilogy. Now, I think Kevin J. Anderson does a tremendous amount of world building. It's probably his strongest trait as an author. It's his imagination in terms of laying the groundwork for what was to come and for decades in Legends, and eventually even on screen in movies like Solo. It doesn't really build much on what's established in the Thrawn trilogy. And as I was writing this question, I was going to ask, do you think that's an intentional oversight in favor of the Dark Empire chronology? I said on last week's show that he references Dark Empire on like every page. But Freddie, you busted out some trivia on me earlier today concerning the relationship with the Jedi Academy trilogy and the Thrawn trilogy, as well as with Dark Empire. You want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't have it open in front of me right now, but basically what it was telling me is there was a major decision made with Lucasfilm or LucasArts. I always get those confused on who controls
Lucasfilm.
What. Yeah,
LucasArts is the video games.
That's right. Okay, so Lucasfilm decided to make a change in I guess the storytelling and what was going to be happening around that time. And Kevin J. Anderson had written it previously with something in mind, and I'm trying to look up the exact note here.
Basically, where they were saying that it was going to be a direct sequel to the Thrawn trilogy. It
exactly.
was going to build much more on the Thrawn trilogy, and then he found out, actually, we've shoehorned the Dark Empire chronology after the Thrawn trilogy in order to try to make this all cohesive, even though it totally isn't.
Exactly. Yep.
So he had to make a last-minute pivot to try to make this a sequel to Dark Empire rather than a sequel to the Thrawn trilogy. Does that about sum it up?
That exactly sums it up. And what kind of he was worried that Dala's attack on Mon Calamari was going to almost be a little redundant because of the world devastators that were just there, right? And so he was very worried about that. I'm sure he had to rewrite it because it does kind of seem like it does seem almost like he's stealing the idea or just not really being creative. And I could understand where he wants to.
I mean, but we're talking about the days before email was even really widely used, right? I mean, if you want to have a creative decision or like any kind of collaboration, it's like you're on the phone, and we're talking about the phone where you have to stand next to the wall with that curly cord. It's like you can't even walk to the other room. You're stuck there next to the wall. If you want to have a conversation, you got to twist the dial in order to make your phone calls. You snail mail. You might get a letter that says, by the way, change your entire trilogy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, what am I going to do? I got to pull out all my floppy disks. And in order to fix this thing, I mean, it's just an absolute nightmare. Today, not that big of a deal. You just put out a tweet that's like, it's delayed 2 months. We've got something that's got to change. But back then, I mean, it's a tremendous hurdle for an author. So hats off to Kevin J. Anderson. I'm going to go ahead and remove my criticism about the fact that this doesn't build enough on the Thrawn trilogy. I would, however, like to know what that version would have looked like. What about you?
I think it'd be interesting, actually, if you were to really do a direct sequel right after, right? Everyone's kind of everyone's relieved because Thrawn is now gone and everything's cooling down. But now you've got multiple threats, right? You've got the Imperial training facility, Imperial training planet, I should say, not even a facility.
Yeah.
And then you've got Dala, who's just out there wreaking havoc on everything.
Yeah, another warlord, right?
Exactly.
And then,
of course,
not obsessed with art. She's just obsessed with blowing stuff up.
Yeah, and then you've got Kip, right? Who's like, he's like that cannon that's sitting right next to the bonfire.
Absolutely.
Just, please do not blow up everything.
Yeah. So I am interested in, we're going to talk about this on an upcoming episode. We're going to have Trevor on. We're going to talk about like the lost legends of legends, kind of the stories that had started or were in development and then were canned for whatever reason. And we've got them across all of the Legends continuity books that, of course, infamously were abandoned because of the Disney sale and the Legends canon split in 2014, such as Sword of the Jedi. But there were also some early Legends books, we're talking about like early 90s, 91, 92. There was, in fact, Freddie, and I can't wait for us to talk about this. There was a book that was canned in favor of the Truce at Bakura. Freddie, the Truce at Bakura almost wasn't. I mean, there was almost another book. It's called The Heart of the Jedi. I've been reading it. I'm 10 chapters in at this point. I'm loving it. I won't say whether or not I love it more than Truce at Bakura. We'll save that for the show. But I mean, it just goes to show how we've come a long way in terms of collaboration between Star Wars creators, especially now that we're looking at the High Republic. Nathan, talk about just how far we've come in terms of collaboration. I know you're a big High Republic fan. You just did one of our reviews on one of these books. I forget what it is. Sorry.
Yeah, I've done Light of the Jedi and
the
Victory's Price just now. But yeah, one of the interesting things to me reading like this and Truce at Bakura and some of the older Legends books is how much the authors have to draw on like the inspiration of the original movies. One of the lines that struck me in, I think, Champions was, when Han is talking down Kip and he's like, I used to not believe in the Force. In fact, I once said it was, a bunch of mumbo jumbo or something like that. Like there's so much inspiration from the films and like the characters in the film. Whereas now, with the High Republic and everything else, it's like it's planned down. Every single detail is planned before the books are written. Everybody knows exactly who the characters are, everything like that. Whereas back then it was kind of like, well, there's some almost room for interpretation between, the different authors and how they portrayed these characters.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you've got the original trilogy, you've got the West End Game source books. If you want to take a look at those, Timothy Zahn really did. Kevin J. Anderson really didn't. So it's fun to kind of see the way that the different authors go different directions, and eventually it all coalesces later in Legends. There wasn't necessarily the collaboration at this point, and they were learning along the way, and that's kind of the fun of Legends is kind of feeling the collaboration happen along the way. By the time we get to like those later series like Legacy of the Force, you've got a very strict collaboration happening. You got 9 books, 3 authors, 3 books apiece, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and they're working with each other. They're much more cohesive, though not perfectly so, and they're building off all this. I mean, it's really a swan song. Legends, Legacy of the Force, and Fate of the Jedi, really a swan song to everything established in the Jedi Academy trilogy. All those characters are, for the most part, a couple of them die along the way, but a lot of them, like Silgal, are on the Jedi Council by the time we get to those books, which is so great. And I love that. But you know what else is great in this series? The blobstacle courses.
That's what I look like right now.
Yeah, that's what Freddie looks like over there, pixelated in his video. This is one of these things that happens in this series where I've got to admit, I've listened to the abridged audiobooks of the Jedi Academy trilogy a bunch. but had not gone through these word for word in the unabridged form in 20 years. I mean, it's since I was a kid. And so enjoyed this time around, just taking my time through them. And in particular, got to the blobstacle courses, and like, I did not remember this at all. It was one of those things where it was like 11:30 at night. I turned to my wife, who like is tired of a capital T, tired of hearing about Star Wars at this point, like shook her and woke her up and was like, listen to this. There's blobs, and it's like horse races. Like they're betting on them. Lando's at the horse races, but they're blobs, like big goo balls. And they're literally called blobstacle courses. He was like, he woke me up for this. And I was like, absolutely, I did. I mean, it's not every day you get to hear about blobstacle courses. Freddie, I know you've gotten into running a little bit this year. If the Youtini team, like all 30 of us, were in a blobstacle course race, we are the blobs in this scenario. Who wins in a blobstacle course race on the Youtini blobstacle course Olympics?
I mean, I think Nathan and Meg, and there seems to be some very hardcore runners in Youtini. I've seen,
Emily's training for an ultra marathon.
Yeah, and I'm not even at the 5K level yet. So hitting an ultra marathon, that's amazing, man. That's some crazy endurance.
The 15 pounds that I gained over Christmas, I don't know if they might actually help me out in the blobstacle horse race, because I got to put on some poundage in order to qualify as a blob in the first place. Depends on the distance. Obviously, Emily would have us beat if we're talking about long distances. If it was like one lap around the track, maybe I used to, I ran a 52 400 meter in high school. Ran in state, with that one. I didn't do well in state, but I got there. But you, Nathan, who would win a blobstacle course race? The serious, hard-hitting questions you get asked on Legends Look Back.
Yeah, so I think the thing we're overlooking is a blobstacle course isn't just about speed. It's also about like, who can take out other blobs. It's, it's kind of a free-for-all. And so I don't know. I feel like somebody like Corey, who's just like hyper competitive and would do anything to win, would at least take a few
Corey
of
would
the
cheat,
faster
he would
runners
definitely
down.
cheat.
He absolutely would. He would pull his like CEO status on us too. So I don't know. I'd pick Corey to win it.
Oh my gosh. Wes, if I had told you ahead of time that blobstacle courses were in these books, would you think I was making it up or that I was serious?
There's a lot of things that happen in Legends that I am not surprised about at all anymore, especially when I hear you talking about it. So blobstacle courses. I mean, again, this is another I'd like to see it for myself, but
yeah. Why didn't this make Solo a Star Wars story?
Yeah. Well, the other thing about him is we talked about last week how like Gantoris is, the red herring Dark Apprentice. I mean, this was a super long red herring, with very little actual bearing on the story. They thought it was, Temin, I think was his name. They thought he was a Jedi, right. And then it just turned out not to be. And it was like,
yeah, that's right.
The 75 pages that they had just spent on this.
They go around. Go ahead, Freddie.
So this is where I remember I told you, I feel like they didn't expand on certain stories enough, but it's because they had all their investment in this blobstacle race. And I mean, I'm not sure. I feel like they were just trying to fill up some, or at least bring Lando in, make him a little bit more relevant by making him go to the blob races, right? And the fact that he's like, oh, blob races. I mean, I can't wait to get in on this.
Yeah.
Priorities of Legends, I guess.
Well, you make a good point that there's a lot of time spent on this and it goes nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Now, on the one hand, if your book is about finding Jedi apprentices, if every single storyline is like, oh, hey, we've got a lead on a Jedi apprentice, and then it's like, we bagged him, we got him to the academy, that's a little bit too predictable. You've got to have at least one where they're like, this guy, hey, we heard he could be a Jedi, only to find out that they're not. I mean, it makes sense that there would be one that wouldn't work out. I mean, I don't mean didn't work out like Gantoris. R.I.P. Gantoris. F's in the chat for Gantoris, who exploded. I especially like the fact that in each one of these books across the trilogy, there's one significant storyline that goes absolutely nowhere. Unlike any Star Wars book I've ever read. I mean, really goes nowhere. Another one of these plot lines that I really loved that just like, why is this the way that it is the plot line surrounding babysitting Jason and Jaina. Is it
Oh, man.
C-3PO and Chewbacca,
Chewbacca.
who are babysitting Jason and Jaina, and they're just doing an
Yep.
abysmal job at it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if I read this correctly. I'd have to go back, but even towards the end, they were still losing them, and it almost seems like a trope where it's like, oh, there we go again, losing the kids.
Oh, I
Yeah,
know.
they
it
did.
really
They did
was.
bring it up again one time, like in Champions, I think. But
Yep,
Oh,
like it was
man.
the trope for them to lose the kids all the time.
It
yep.
really was just amazing the way that that storyline devolved. They basically go to like the under levels of Coruscant in an elevator, and they're just like there's like thugs, there's monsters, there's slime, there's like blood and glass and drugs, and there's like these two 4-year-olds walking around. They're like, I don't know about this, Jason. Oh, it's fine. It's just like knowing that these would be like two of the heavy hitters in Legends, two of the most iconic EU characters. They're just lost alone in the underlevels of Coruscant, which brings up a good point, though, and that's this, a very important question. Freddie, if you were in charge of babysitting Jason and Jaina at 4 years old, actually, let's start with you, Nathan. Nathan, you can go first on this one. If you're in charge of babysitting Jason and Jaina, what do you do? How do you entertain them? I mean, in this series, there's a holographic zoo of extinct animals. I mean, I'm looking at that in the show notes. I remember typing it, but I'm like second guessing myself. I'm like, did that actually happen, or did I make that up in a fever
No, that
dream?
happened.
It happened. Okay. What would you do? Have you thought about this? Are you much of a babysitter, Nathan?
I'm not. I have a few times. But I mean, this series, it really like increased my respect for C-3PO. I mean, he's the only one. Like, Han and Leia, they can't take care of the kids. Chewbacca can't. Like, they love C-3PO, and he does a great job parenting. But
yeah, he does. He's like reading
I
bedtime
don't know.
stories.
Yeah, they would be difficult kids. I don't know. Maybe you just got to go like fly them around Coruscant. I mean, even the zoo of holographic animals could not entertain them at all. So you might just, hyperspace, jumping planet to planet. That might be enough excitement for them.
Well, what's funny is we get this glimpse in Return of the Jedi of C-3PO as a storyteller, right? He's like, Banda Kadosh, as he's telling the story around the campfire on Endor. And in this, he like tries telling a bedtime story like that, but it scares them. And they're like, shut up, C-3PO. They start crying. And I was like, he would scare them. He would frighten them. It's like not very motherly, this golden droid. Where's he at? Sorry, buddy. Not the best mother figure, gotta tell you.
Yeah. But he always was like, oh, I've added this to my programming. I've updated my parental programming
right.
to accommodate this situation. So
not the best snuggler, that gold droid skin. What would you do, Freddie? How would you entertain I've got a couple kids, right? I mean, this is my daily life. Today I was like, all right, get in the stroller. We're walking the dog. They're like, it's 30 degrees. I'm like, we're walking the dog. It worked out. It was great. We loved it. I would just bundle up. What would you do, Freddie? How would you entertain Jason and Jaina?
Yeah, this is tough. I don't really interact with kids daily, so it's not something that I know how to do. So it'd be very much the let's go to the closest store and buy a Revan figure.
There you
Remember
go.
that guy, Revan?
Let's go buy toys. But like, hey, some of these toys are for me. And
yeah,
mess up
exactly.
their next springs.
Two of each.
Absolutely, that's the way to go. I mean, 2 of each, one for Daddy, one for you. Well, now I just called Freddie Daddy. This is getting weird. You know what else is weird is this opening scene in Champions of the Force. It is absolutely one of the most crushing moments. I mean, it caught me off guard. We're talking about a trilogy here that's got blobstacle courses and babysitting Jason and Jaina with a holographic zoo of extinct animals. And then book 3 begins with, genocide. Yeah. The opening of Champions of the Force is absolutely one of the most heartbreaking and powerful beginnings of any Star Wars book I've ever read. Freddie, you want to talk about that? I mean, for this is like the one of 2 or 3 things that really stands out to me as memorable about this trilogy in the dozen times that I've read it is the opening of Champions of the Force. Freddie, I'm going to go ahead and pause it, and I want you to argue with my thesis here, whether or not you agree. Is this the most powerful beginning to a Legends book ever?
That's tough to say. I'm trying to think of like the beginnings of a lot of these books, and I would say the genocide and everything. That's it's pretty intense to read. I mean, it's very it's not what you expect to read in Star Wars, right? You expect to just have a fun time going on this pirate slash swashbuckling adventure.
Yeah.
But talking with some people like Cheryl and Charlie and Eric, you really see a lot of the heavy hitting points in Star Wars. And thinking about Star Wars and genocide, yes, the Emperor was very much a genocidal person. Like if it did something to make the Empire stronger, he was going to do it at all costs.
Like,
right?
we can blow up your planet if we want to.
Exactly, right. And
yeah,
and I mean, think about it, getting rid of like all the Alderaanians and a beautiful planet, and it's just what makes it less possible to do it for like another species, right? And we know for a fact that in Star Wars there was definitely, even in X-Wing, what was that virus, the Kratos virus?
The Krytos virus.
Krytos virus, yeah. The
Kratos is
virus.
the like mythological being.
Yeah, that's right.
Krytos is the Star Wars disease.
Yeah, so I mean, genocide is very much a part of Star Wars, and having it at the very beginning is definitely it sets the tone.
Well, and it's because it's personal for Kip, right? He loses his brother. He goes to Karita, and they're like, the Imperials, they try to foil him by saying like, no, your brother's dead. And then he's like, all right, fine, I'll blow you all up. And then they're like, oh no, actually your brother's right here if you want to talk to him. He's like, too late, I'm blowing you up. And then he's like, his brother's right there on the ladder getting into the ship, and then the planet explodes and his brother's dead. I mean, it's absolutely crushing. I think the personal level makes the genocide all the more meaningful. Not that the billions of people that he killed didn't matter, but for us as the reader to feel Kip's anguish in losing that one person, you realize there's thousands, there's billions of people who lost that one person in this accident. And it comes back to bite him. It comes back to bite Kip. There are Imperials later on, I think in the New Jedi Order, maybe Legacy, Fate of the Jedi, high-ranking Imperials who eventually, they're going to have an alliance with the Rebellion, the New Republic, to form a broader, more long-lasting government. And they're like, listen, we will not cooperate with a government that keeps the killer, like the genocidal Jedi, on the council in an established position with no ramifications for his behavior. Nathan, I know you're pretty well read. Do you think this is the most powerful start to any Legends book ever?
It could be. And I've been thinking through like the Legends books I've read, and most of them, from what I know, they start with like, an introduction to the characters. They start slow. But I mean, in terms of like emotional significance, obviously this is very different, but the raw emotion of the moment did remind me a lot of, a certain death in the New Jedi Order. And actually the way it happened was very similar as well. But in terms of openings, I mean, I can't really think of anything that's kind of, on this level.
Yeah. That particular death happens maybe 2/3, it could be third act of that book. So I love the opening line in Rogue Squadron. I think it's the best opening line in all of literature ever, not just Star Wars. It's about Corran Horn. We talked about this a couple years, a year and a half ago at this point, Freddie. It says, "You're good, kid, but you're no Luke Skywalker." And it's about Corran. I just love that line. It immediately sets the tone that Corran sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're in on the joke. That's the whole point. I love that. I also love the opening to some of those Republic Commando books. They'll open with like a really crazy fun heist adventure with the clones. But it's not crushing in the same way as this. The only other thing I can think of that compares, out of all my Legends knowledge, I'm not read every Legends book, but most, is the opening to the first Coruscant Knights book. Is, spoiler alert for the first 20 pages of that, the Jedi Master Evan Peel dies at the hand of an Inquisitor or something like that in the first chapter of that book. And he, like, his dying wish is that his Padawan Jax Pavan would carry on his mission to overthrow Palpatine or save the Jedi Order or restart the rebellion or something like that. I don't know. I've read like 15 Star Wars books since then, but that one's crushing because it's like, oh, he's this nice little funny, scarred, big-eared Jedi Council member. He's, and then he's, he dies. I said this the other day in the Living Force live chat. He's the most dead of all the Jedi Council members. He dies twice in Legends, and then one more time in canon in the Clone Wars. So can I get F's in the chat for Evan Peel, who dies, and he dies some more, and he dies a lot. So I do love the opening to this. Love it in like a heartbreaking
Yeah.
literary kind of way. I don't love it in the same way that I love Blobstacle Course races. Right?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's all an ethical dilemma.
You know what else is an ethical dilemma is another point of kind of heartbreak in this series is when Han and Chewie they're kind of helping the Wookiees who have been on this Imperial base in the Maw installation. Is it Han and Chewie? Could be the Rebel strike team that comes to try to help liberate that facility. No, it's Wookiee. Yeah, it's Chewie because he definitely wants to save the
shows
Wookiees.
up, but Han's
he's
not
like,
there,
he's like, I'm not going to leave until we save the Wookiees, and that was translated from Shuri Wook, by the way.
Kip is in the detention center with Dala, right? That's where that whole thing happens.
Oh yeah, he's like tortured. Yeah. These Imperial lady overlords, like the admirals, they love to tie up their men, like the Jedis. You got Corran Horn gets tied up by Isard and strapped naked to a chair. And then we've got, and I'm not kidding, it actually happens.
Yep.
In this fictional universe. It actually happens in this fake stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then
you just got to remember when it was written, the 90s Baywatch era is what I try to remind myself.
Yeah, that's right. Not the Rock Baywatch, the other stuff. The
old
Baywatch.
Yeah.
So in this one, we've got Dala, tying up Kip Duron. So it's not a Legends book if a Jedi doesn't get tied up by a Imperial overlord. But in this particular chapter, there's this, the liberation of the Wookiees. You've got Chewbacca trying to free his Wookiee brothers. Much like we get in Solo with that scrawny, underfed Wookiee, and you're like, "Ooh, is that a Wookiee? I don't like that at all." But it's much like that. But in this particular version, they're not just like jogging out of the prison with this droid revolt. They take the heads of their Imperial captors and smash them into the walls. I mean, it was some Old Testament stuff going on in here. I mean, it was super brutal. You want to talk about that Wookiee brutality, Freddie? This really ties into kind of some real world issues here where there's been a lot of arguments about protests, right? It's like, well, why can't we protest more civilly? And we always say that from the position of privilege, right? It's like, well, we can be critical of those who are upset. We want them to be upset in a nice way. Just be upset peacefully, right? Whereas these Wookiees, like they've been enslaved and you can feel their rage coming out at you off the page. I mean, you learn that Wookiees can rip people's arms out of their sockets and there's arms flying all over the place in this book.
Yeah, there is. There is. It really goes down to if you are, right, these are slaves. These Wookiees are definitely 100% slaves. They are being whipped by an energy whip, I guess it is. So they're, they've got burns. They're kept in probably the worst environment for them. It's sanitized. They prefer like the humidity of the jungle, but here they are inside of a Star Destroyer or whatever it is. And it's sad to see them in that position. And you can also imagine once they are no longer the captives, do you really expect them to show pity? If I saw the Wookiees express pity, that's not really the expectation. To me, the expectation is absolute demolition.
Yeah. It really does make sense why they do it. And when I read about it in this fictional book, I'm like, it makes sense that they would be angry. But then we see it in the real world and we're like, oh, I don't know. I wish that people could just, protest the way that I'm more comfortable with. You want to speak to this, Nathan? You don't have to hit the political angle, but did you feel like in this particular instance that their revenge against their captors was too much for you or an appropriate reaction being enslaved?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Wookiees and the way they're depicted, throughout legends is that they're, fiercely loyal and fiercely loving, but also, they have a temper. And so, I guess from a character standpoint and also just from a standpoint of understanding, the situation they were in, I think it totally makes sense, like how angry they got. And I mean, obviously this is an issue that KJA brings up also with Kip, right? Like he grew up basically in the mines of Kessel and, he gets out and he has a lot of anger. So it's like how much, I guess, is justified or forgivable against
they're not
people
acclimated
who are
to society. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's also what we deal with in the real world, is like how much is understandable and forgivable, and how far can people go in the name of anger, and like righteous and justified anger.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. I am never going to enslave any Wookiees or humans. All right, there's just no slavery. We should go ahead and put that stamp of approval on Legends Lookback. We do stamp of disapproval. We do not approve of slavery towards humans or Wookiees in a galaxy far, far away, or this galaxy. It doesn't matter. It's not a good thing. All right, I think we can all agree on that one, regardless of our politics or our worldview. We've talked about the Wookiees. We've talked about Kip Duran. We've talked about Jason and Jaina and the extinct animals and the blobstacle courses. We need to talk about two more major characters' story arcs before we are done tonight, and that is Exar Kun and, on the opposite end of the spectrum, Luke Skywalker himself. Let's start with the villainous, and we'll end on a high note with Luke, okay? How exactly, we talked about this some last week, and I don't think I'm any clearer after a week of thinking about it. How exactly did they defeat Exar Kun? There's a retcon in iJedi, and it's kind of like, well, secretly it was Mara and Corran who distracted Exar Kun so that the other Jedi could feel like they won, right? That they had overpowered him, but really it was Corran Horn. Corran Horn's the one who really defeats Exar Kun, right? And I'm sure Mara was like, yeah, right, Corran. It was actually me, right? Corran couldn't have done it without Mara, which I love that pairing of Corran and Mara. That's the best part of that book for sure. Freddie, how do you think they actually defeated Exar Kun in like a strategic standpoint? I mean, obviously Timothy Zahn would spell it out very specifically if he was writing the book in terms of the military strategy and the battle tactics, and Anderson doesn't do that. It's a very different kind of victory.
That's the funniest thing that I'm just bringing this to light in my own brain right now, is I don't actually know how they did it. I just remember that Exar Kun was there and then he wasn't. And I don't really know how that happened. And you're right. There's almost like a blank spot in my own brain, as if they just deleted that memory from me as I was reading it. And clearly it wasn't enough for me to memorize, and I can't even tell you how exactly that happened. Just from the force of goodwill, I guess. I don't know.
The way I summarized it last week in the episode summary is that they defeated him with the power of positive thinking and the light side of the force and teamwork, or some combination of those three. Like, they finally realized that they needed to come together and like overcome their fears and start acting like Jedi who don't operate out of fear, but out of like peacefulness and positive thinking.
Yeah.
And when they finally held hands and raised their lightsabers up into the sky, they intimidated Exar Kun with their positivity into disappearing for all eternity. Is that about right, Nathan?
Yeah, I think that's about right. It's kind of just the power of light and love. I guess the way I think about it, I have it pictured in my brain from both times I read it. It's kind of like in Bane, when they all just kind of pool like their force powers and connect their minds a little bit and just kind of, I guess banish them away. But yeah, it is it seems like it's kind of up for individual interpretation for sure.
Yeah. So let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments. How do you think they defeated Exar Kun? How would you defeat Exar Kun if you were rewriting this book? Who's really responsible? Is it Streen, and the other Jedis? yeah, right, Streen. You really defeated Exar Kun. Sure, you did.
I'm gonna go with the vibe was the post home run vibe, and they're just the spanking, the good job, whatever, pats on the back, just that, and he's just like, I'm not down for this.
You've got Corran thinks he defeated Exar Kun. I think it's Mara who's mostly responsible for defeating Exar Kun. She comes in at the last minute and saves the day to help Corran to distract Exar Kun so that the other Jedi could trap him with the light side of the Force. Now, on a religious level, I do make this comparison, okay? In early chapters of First John, there's the section about dragging sin into the light. And the whole point is, as long as sin is in the darkness, it can fester and grow. But if sin then is brought out into the light and you confess your sins, if you share something that you're struggling with and ask for help, and you don't no longer try to keep it a secret. Yeah, Wes, can you like Photoshop a pulpit in front of me? Maybe like a big Bible. The point is, as long as we allow our sins to be kept secret, they will continue to get worse. And our bad habits, temptations, however you want to look at it, right? But if you are open about what you're struggling with, you can get help, right? And so this was kind of the way that I looked at this, was like Exar Kun thrived as an ancient, disembodied spirit of a Sith Lord. He thrived by feeding off people's fears. He thrived off of disunity. He thrived off of living in the darkness. He only worked at night. But as soon as they realized they could drag him out into the light and they would confront him during the daytime, he was weaker. If they came together and used the best parts of themselves, if they believed in themselves, then they could defeat them. Am I making sense, Freddie? Does that add up a little bit?
Yeah, it does. It actually does make a lot of sense. It reminds me of like, let's just say Constantine, right? Where he's reading the Bible, he's exorcising the demon out of somebody, and imagine reading that in a book where it's just he reads a Bible and the positivity coming from of Constantine himself brings out the demon. So I see what you mean, and when you bring it towards like the theological route, it makes sense, right? It makes complete sense, but
yeah,
reading it doesn't really come off that
no,
simple.
It's not especially well spelled out. It definitely takes some jumping through some interpretive hoops in order to get there. And that's what I'll do. Hey, that's what I'm here for.
If you need confirmation that this series is based on the Bible, my copy of Jedi Search came from Thrift Books with Holy Bible inscribed on the front of it.
Forgot about that. Oh my gosh.
That's God's will right there, if you ask me.
If you're listening on audio, Nathan's copy of Jedi Search literally has in Sharpie, written by like a child, like a 12-year-old, across the cover. It's defaced and it says Holy Bible. Imagine like staying at a hotel and reaching into your nightstand to get your Gideon Bible, and instead it's this
Jedi
copy
Search.
of Jedi Search.
I would not be mad at all.
I would go back to that hotel for sure. You know that Exar Kun is haunting that hotel. Definitely. Well, ultimately, Luke realizes, we can't redeem this ancient Sith spirit, but we can redeem everybody else. We're just throwing redemption at everybody in this series. He never really believes that Gantoris is a villain. He always believes Gantoris can be saved. Luke never really believes that Kip is a villain, that Kip has done anything wrong, that it's all about the possession for him, and he can learn his lessons and recover from the error of his ways. Can we talk about Luke's obsession with redemption? Does he only have one trick in his playbook? Are there any other valid strategies in terms of starting a new generation of Jedi besides just trying to save everybody and everything?
Yeah. You read that section in the trilogy where his one fear, right? Luke is really afraid of losing somebody to the dark side, and he has it happen to him almost twice, but he's very much trying to say, it's okay. Like, I've been to the dark side as well, right? According to Dark Empire, right? I've been there. I know what it's like. I know that you're trying to do it to be a good person and learn both sides, but it just doesn't work. So at least he's got that experience, right?
Yeah, that is not talked about much in Legends, but this series does. It really does get into it. And it makes sense now that we've got that alternative history, that behind the scenes on why that is the way that it is. That's not always helpful, though, to be like, you know what? I've learned the error of my ways, too, and so will you. I don't find, at least in ministry, that's particularly helpful to people. People don't want to know. Some people it's helpful for, but like if somebody comes to me and they're like, I've got a real problem, and I'm like, I've got problems too. You want to hear about them? They don't want to hear about them. That's not what they're here for. People want help. Yeah, Luke in this series, and eventually is going to be challenged by Corran Horn, and I Jedi, and even Mara. Mara's a good foil for him to be like, Luke, you can't save everybody. Not everybody needs to be saved. Sometimes there's real villains who need to be stabbed with a lightsaber or decapitated. Doesn't she decapitate Luke in
Yeah, she does.
The Last Command?
She does.
F's in the chat for Luke. Poor Luke. He never really had a hope. Luke didn't try to redeem Luke. I'd like to get that alternative history. Well, Luke's got some growing to do. Clearly was not qualified to start a Jedi Academy, but it all worked out in the end, and there was a happy ending. And of course, this is going to be expanded throughout the next 10 years of Legends. We're going to find out more about some of these characters that Anderson establishes. And we've even got a Dorsk 82. All right, if Dorsk 81 was enough for you, we're eventually going to get Dorsk 82. Guys, last thoughts, final moments here for the Jedi Academy trilogy. We're closing the tome. We're going to put it away forever, or at least another few years until we decide to pick it up again. Anything that we've missed here with this legendary trilogy?
Well, this is we talked about a couple things in our previous episodes with derogatory terms in Star Wars, and we definitely get a taste of that with Momon Da when he's like, "Oh yeah, these guys are hammerheads." He's like, "Actually, we're not hammerheads.
We don't
go by that anymore."
Hammerheads.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, just the connectedness. Before this, you don't have too many Star Wars books that are referencing other Star Wars books.
That's a
so
good point. Yeah.
To see this for the first time and say, "Oh my gosh, I know exactly what they're talking about. I read that one," and starting to get that vibe of what continuity sounds like. It's all in this book, right? And it's wonky. We've got blob races, but it's overall it's a solid read.
And it's an important series for Legends. I mean, it establishes Kip Duran, who's such a significant character, mentor role to Jaina Solo, kind of a foil for Luke and the new Jedi Order. They don't get along. We've got tremendous world building that's happening in terms of Kessel, which is going to be an important planet for years to come, as well as Dala, a very important character who comes back in one of those later long series. Forget if it's Legacy or Fate of the Jedi. Dala becomes a much more important, much more well-rounded, fleshed out character than she was in this trilogy. So I know I've been a little bit, we've made fun here and there. We poked fun. It's because we love it. All right. It's like I poked fun my little brother who, if he's watching this, you should probably read the book before you watch an hour-long roundtable. Okay. It's like we poke fun because we love this series. But I will say what Kevin J. Anderson excels at more than anything is capturing the imagination and really drawing on the original trilogy and fleshing out, and it's sometimes egregiously so. But at this point in Legends, we didn't know not to, right? We didn't know that, you should only say, "I've got a bad feeling about this," like one time per trilogy. You don't have to say it 3 or 4 times in every book. Never ceases to make me smile, though, for sure. An excellent world builder. Nathan, any final thoughts on Jedi Academy trilogy? Did you have a favorite of the 3? Let's ask that. A favorite of the 3 books in the trilogy?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jedi Search too. I mean, the way it sets everything up, and especially like the Han and Chewie content. Like Han is one of the best characters in this trilogy for sure, and so Jedi Search has a lot of that. And Lando's also, Lando too.
Well.
I mean, they're both great characters. But one thing I don't think we've appreciated enough is like the fact that there was another Death Star hidden away, but also the most powerful weapon in the universe. And that then went into a gas giant, but was then pulled out and used, but was then eventually destroyed for good, along with the knowledge of how to build it. Because if that wasn't destroyed, I'm sure somehow, somebody would have used that in a later Legends book, and we would have had at least one more Sun Crusher. So,
oh my gosh,
Kevin J. Anderson, hey, he loves his super weapons. His only other full-length adult Star Wars novel that he wrote, Darksaber, once again has another super weapon. So hats off. He's got the hat trick on Legends super weapons: another Death Star, Sun Crusher, and the Darksaber. And we're not talking about the weapon that Darth Maul wields. We're talking about like the big galaxy gun that blows up space stations and planets or something. I don't remember. We'll get there sooner or later. That's a good point, Nathan. I appreciate that perspective. I agree with Nathan. I think Jedi Search is my favorite. I especially love the Gantoris stuff, jumping up and the volcano, and you got the lava fire Jesus, and that's a lot of fun for sure, walking on the lava. But I do love the back and forth with Han and Lando on gambling the Falcon in Dark Apprentice. That is so funny to me. Freddie, you got a favorite of the 3?
It's always, I think it's always good to say that the first one's definitely one of my favorites, but the back and forth with Hondo Hondo, I said it again. This is the second week in a row.
We'll fix it in post.
It doesn't help that one of my buddies' name is Hondo. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah.
Does he have a Kowakian monkey lizard?
He does not.
Yeah,
but that
important
could be
question.
changed. That
Okay.
could be changed. And of course, the blobsicle races. Like, how often you're going to see a blob race in a book, as important as Star Wars? You know.
That's a good point. Absolutely. I think everybody should read. Is it the first book, second, that's got the
I think
Blobsicle
that's
course? Jedi
Dark
Search?
Apprentice.
Okay. Everybody on Youtini's got to read that. I mean, it's time that we catch up. Speaking of Youtini team members, thanks for filling in for us tonight. Wes, it has been quite the adventure for you to keep us running. With the stream only crashed in its entirety one time.
So
everybody give Wes a round of applause. Wes, we didn't ask you this. Have you read these books?
Well, absolutely not. I haven't even heard of these books until I started prepping for the show. But I do have them up in the Wook, as you like to say. So
I do.
I might give them.
I'm glad you pay attention. So I know you don't actually read the books for the roundtables that you're actually guesting on, and you have like a month's notice on. So I didn't expect that you had, but I had to ask. I had to give you a chance.
Is that obvious, huh?
Are you more interested in reading these now that you've heard us talk about it than you were before you had not heard us talk about it?
Well, hearing that there is apparently a Death Star that gets taken in and taken out and taken in, that sounds appealing. Let me ask you another question. What is the total length in pages of these books? So that is a big factor in me actually getting around to reading.
Yeah, I would actually recommend, Wes, checking out the abridged audio books. I've done the abridged and have read word for word what's happening in these, and you get the gist of it. You know, they're very short. You can listen to all 3 audiobooks in 9 hours. They're pretty short, like 3 hours each. So that actually might be my recommendation, which is rare that I would recommend that. In this instance, like, it's okay to cut some of the pointless story arcs. It really is.
Is that the trilogy you have in your hand there? All 3
I've
books?
got the hardback Sci-Fi Book Club edition trilogy, which is 712 pages.
That's not too bad.
The 3 paperbacks is probably about that. It's a different page length.
It's 900 pages about for the 3 paperbacks. So
700 sounded better. It's 700, Wes. 700. Not 900.
Yeah, 700.
They're really easy to read too, though. So
they are. I read the entire trilogy in 10 days. I also was off work and grad school because of my concussion. There was nothing else I could do. And
I read the last 2. Just take this, Wes. I read the last 2 in like 2 to 3 days.
So they are very much some of the breeziest Star Wars books ever written. That does it for this week.
I found out in Texas that when your power gets shut off, you can finish a book in 2 days. So
that's right. Absolutely. Especially if people make fun of you on the podcast for never finishing the books. Well, this has been a ton of fun. Thanks for Wes for filling in for us tonight. Thanks to Nathan for guesting with us once again. That does it for Legends Look Back. Next week, there will not be a live show. Of course, thanks to everybody who's been with us live in the chat tonight. We're glad to have you with us, especially after we crashed and burned the first time. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, nothing happened, nothing to see here. Everything's fine. How are you? But there will be no live show next week. We're going to give Meg another week off as she's excavating, her basement at home. We also are going to be excavating the treasure trove of Legends, the forgotten history of Legends, with everybody's favorite deep diver into the treasure trove of the weird stuff and obscure stuff in Legends. Trevor Davey from across the pond is going to be joining us once again for the Lost Legends of Legends. And I can't wait. It's going to be a ton of fun. Thanks for joining us on Legends Look Back. If you'd like your thoughts read on the show, you can email us at legendslookback@youtini.com, or you can contact us in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. There's always a ton of fun happening over there, talking about noodles and Palpatine and all kinds of fun stuff. Or you can leave a comment on this episode on YouTube, or you can find us on Twitter. You can tweet at us at Legends Look Back with our all-new Twitter account over there, or you can contact us more directly. I'm at Jared Q. Mays. Freddie?
At Wake Up Freddy.
Meg is at Meg Dowell, who I just learned recently has like 1,500 Twitter followers. I've got like 300, 1,500. Meg's got racking up those Twitter followers. So give Meg a few more gems in her infinity gauntlet of social media domination. Also, Nathan. Nathan is on Twitter.
Yep, it's Nathan Emery.
And how about you, Wes? You on Twitter?
I am on Twitter. I'm at Boss Wes.
Boss Wes. I could have come up with that, but I didn't ask you ahead of time. So thankfully, you're still paying attention. If you're looking to buy some of these books, such as Wes, who's got some catching up to do, you can go on over to our all new redesigned book profiles at Youtini.com, and you can click on the Amazon or Thrift Books, eBay affiliate links in the profile. Or, of course, you can leave us a review over there as well and let us know what you think. Which of these is your favorite in the trilogy? Are Nathan and I right? Is Freddie right? Hey, let us know. We'd love to know what you think. And remember, of course, keep the Youtini fan code and be a force for positivity in the fandom. Until next time, may the force be with you. Whew, Wes, we really put you through the paces, man.